from lunch. I hope you're all full and not too sleepy, because I think this is going to be a very dynamic panel. So as the MC just said, this is SheTrades, Making It Happen. And my name is Adrienne Klasa. I am the editor of This is Africa at the Financial Times. So by way of a quick introduction before I turn to my esteemed panel of experts, why are we talking about women in the context of trade? I think two stats will illustrate this point very easily. Women own about 10 million SMEs worldwide, yet women-owned firms only account for about 5% of global trade. Clearly, there is an imbalance. Women are not accessing the global international trade ecosystem in the way and in the volume that they should. So in order to talk about some of these barriers, both from the level of practitioners, from the levels of countries, and also from the level of international organizations, I'm going to introduce my panelists, and I'm going to start from my left. We have Ms. Arantxa Gonzalez, who is Executive Director of the International Trade Center. Thank you for being here. We have Ms. Sona Jabarte, who is a kora virtuoso. For those who don't know, a kora is a 21-stringed instrument, similar to a lyre or a mandolin, like a harp. I'm so sorry. I'd love to hear your playing sometime. I'm going to have to look it up after. And she's also a social entrepreneur from the Gambia. Next, we have Mr. Olusegun Owolowo, who is the Executive Director and CEO of the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. We have Ms. Luloti Rajmun, who is the Director of the Mauritius Export Association. We have Dr. Petra Pana, who is the Deputy Secretary of State at the Ministry of Foreign and International Trade for Hungary, our host here today. So thank you very much for being here. And finally, we have Ms. Ahu Surtur, who is the founder of the Women Investment Platform in Turkey, but who also works around the world. So thank you all for being here and for sharing your insights on this very important topic. So I'm going to start with Arantxa. And I'm hoping that you can set the scene for us a little bit in terms of why ITC decided it was necessary to start SheTrades and some of the barriers to women fully accessing global trade that you have identified.
For two very simple reasons. Reason number one, because there is no level playing field for women to participate in international trade. It's not that women are less creative, less innovative, less good entrepreneurs. It's simply that there are structural obstacles to them participating in international trade. The obstacles are multiple. Laws that are discriminatory, absence of networks for women entrepreneurs, more difficult access to credit, essential ingredient if you want to be in business. Less time to be devoted to economic activities, given the burden that many women have with household care, with care of the family, which leaves very little time to devote to economic activities. And over and above this, culture, norms, and traditions that do not necessarily see women as economic actors. And if you want a statistic on this, it's pretty simple. Offline trade, out of 5 exporting companies, 1 is women-owned. Online trade, where people don't see the face of the trader, where they don't know who is selling, 4 out of 5 are women-owned businesses. So when you don't see the face of who's selling, you trust, because what you want is a good product or a good service. But when you see the face of the person, there seems to be some different cultural approaches. So reason number one, structural obstacles for women to be part of the economy. Reason number two, because we need ecosystem solutions. It's not just one button that you push that resolves the problems. You need multiple buttons, which is what this panel represents. Governments, businesses, investors, public figures, trade promotion organizations, an ecosystem that would work to fix all this myriad of obstacles to women's participation in trade.
So if the need is so clear, I'm going to ask you one follow-up question, then I'll move to everybody else. If the need is so clear, and we've cited statistics that make this case pretty much irrefutable. Why isn't this happening yet? Why aren't women being brought to the fore of discussions of international trade and trade policy?
I think there is two reasons. I'll give you the polite reason first, maybe, and then the impolite. The polite one is maybe people don't have the necessary knowledge and statistics that show that when women participate in the economy, it's not a question about women, it's a question about societies. It's the economies that embed women more forcefully. These are economies that grow faster and that grow stronger because the growth is more inclusive. So maybe we haven't done a good enough job at explaining this. I'll give you the less polite answer, because this is a question of distribution of power. And it's difficult to distribute power. It's difficult for people who have the power today to give it up. Clearly, power in the economy is skewed to one side. And that will take a bit of an effort, but I mean, I think for me, what matters is this is not a fight about women. This is about making our societies and our economies more inclusive, and what I see with the current backlash on our economies is they are not inclusive enough. Too many inequalities. This is an answer, a partial answer. It's not all the answer, but it's a partial answer to inequalities.
Thank you very much for that, Arantxa. Petra, I'm going to turn to you so that we can talk a little bit more about the particular case of Hungary and the kind of work that you're doing to promote women entrepreneurs.
Well, first of all, I would like to say thank you for being here in Budapest and for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this panel. As maybe one of the few deputy state secretaries that is a young woman. But anyway, let's turn to our issue of today. Today in Hungary, one third of the entrepreneurs or enterprises are run by women. And the government recognized the importance of women's economic engagement. And therefore, the government introduced several measures in order to strengthen the access opportunities of these enterprises that are either owned or run by women. For example, the SME Development Strategy of Force of 2014-2020 includes a promotion of female entrepreneurs, and the strategy rightly identified that the group of these enterprises that are run by women are a segment with a different needs and specification. But, you know, before I introduce to you all these measures that have been taken in the recent years, I guess that we have to stop for a minute. We are talking about being an entrepreneur as a woman, but first and foremost we are women, and we have to talk about women. So I guess that the most important thing is that we shouldn't be pushed in a situation where we have to choose between, you know, work and family, or career and having a child, maternity. So before we start to talk about being a successful entrepreneur as a woman, we must be sure that there are the legal frameworks allow us to not to choose but to run both in the same time. I mean, both your personal and professional life. So what were these measures of the recent years? For example, the capacity of institutions for young children, I mean kindergarten and preschool type of things. So the number of these institutions was multiplied. Then another thing, this is an outlook, let's say. Our government is a so-called family-friendly government, and you can see it through the taxation system of ours. For example, if you have 3 children, you actually basically are not paying any personal income tax. Or people that are about to start a family and they want to buy a new house, they can get a cash grant, a non-refundable cash grant for it. But that was the outlook. Let's have a closer look on the labor code. The labor code's latest restructuring allow us some atypical forms of employment and is more flexible. For example, if an employee who has a child under the age of 3 must be provided with a part-time job at least. So I guess this is something that helps to those families, and I say parents because it's not only about the mother of the child but the father as well. So that's once again an opportunity for a woman to decide that maybe a lovely husband can help after like 2 or 3 months of the birth of the child. Well, so flexible labor market, family-friendly workplaces are promoted here in Hungary, and a so-called maternity leave extra package gives the women the optional opportunity to return to the labor market and keep the existing benefits as well. So, but let's turn to some real details. The Economic Development and Innovation Operational Program allows us to support flexible employment. It means that recipients can get 3 to 15 million Hungarian forint. It means like 11 and 55,000 US dollars to as a non-refundable support to support activities among entrepreneurs that can help train the employees to a more flexible working schedule. And another initiative is to promote expansion and market access of SMEs in order to make use of development resources more targeted and more efficient. Women entrepreneurs and enterprises owned by women or female executive managers are preferred during the evaluation process. Another option within this program is a system of a mentoring program. This means that mentors help women entrepreneurs to exploit their business potential more effectively, and by this program entrepreneurs can get a sum around 13,000 US dollars, which is once again non-refundable for activities like consultancy on financial knowledge, professional training of mentors and consultants, creation and operation of online knowledge base and resources map, and providing an institutional background supporting the mentoring process. So this is briefly, what happened in the recent years. Labor code was reshaped, reformed, and the government is really dedicated to support families, and through supporting families, through supporting women, supporting women entrepreneurs as well.
Thank you so much, Petra. It sounds like a lot of work has been done, and it does sound like it is happening on two tiers. One, in terms of leveling the playing field to enable women to engage in the labor market on fair terms, and the second in terms of actually promoting them once they take an interest in starting a business. So I'm sure we can dig more into that a little bit later. But I want to turn to Lilauti to give us the perspective from Mauritius. And we talked about this a little bit last night, actually, in terms of you actually felt that Mauritius gives a lot of opportunity to women if you have a go-getter attitude. But do you think that there are particular challenges in the business world that need to be addressed still?
Thank you, Andrian. I would like Lilauti Rajmanam, the director of the Mauritius Export Association, with 19 years of experience in the export sector of the country. So basically, first of all, I would like to thank ITC for giving me and Mauritius the opportunity to share with you experience of how women entrepreneurs are doing in Mauritius. First of all, just a KPI type of to put you in the picture. 19 years at MEXA, and MEXA has been existing, the Mauritius Export Association, that is MEXA, my organization, been existing since 34 years. And I've got a board membership which constitutes of 19 members. And for the last 34 years, I've never seen a woman as a board member. So board members are normally directors of companies, export companies. So this is quite quite a good indication of whether women escalate up to the directorship at high level management. That being said, we have like 200 active exporting companies exporting all around the world. I must say that I have only a bunch of 4 or 5 directors, women directors, CEOs heading those export companies. I think that what the problem is in Mauritius regarding women entrepreneurship, and one I've been listening since yesterday, I think it's a global problem. It's not only a problem of one country, it's a global problem that we need to address. But I will give you a snapshot of what we are doing in Mauritius. I think the woman entrepreneurship is a journey which starts with the MSMEs, like micro, then you move up to the ladder to SMEs, then to the large companies, emerging exporting company, and then large companies. You've got 4 stages in that journey. And I think that I must say that at the level of Mauritius, we believe in women entrepreneurship. The government is very committed to, we as well as private sector, we have a frank dialogue, a very close collaboration to ensure that this journey of women entrepreneurship becomes successful. Right from the start, we have the Women Ministry, the Ministry of Women and Gender Equality, under which they have set up a National Women Entrepreneurship Council, which regroup around the 1,000, 2,000 entrepreneurs, be it men or women. I would like to stress on it. But we have more women entrepreneurs at that level. So basically that's at micro level. What we do at that level is that we assist them, we babysit them from A to Z. That is, we look at their product, we enhance the quality of the product, the packaging way, build up their confidence, leadership, and management. That's an accompanying measure all through. And I must say that at that level, you see many women entrepreneurs in hairdressing, food preparation, or in apparel and garment making, and they are making their way on. But moving them from MSMEs to SMEs, that's where the challenge is. What we are doing from SME level, the government, we know that finance is an issue. So the government of Mauritius has put up a SME bank, which normally has been existing since a long time. I will just give you the measure, and I will tell you the challenge afterward very quickly to be on time. So we have a one-stop shop for SMEs, and be it men or women, they have the same treatment. They are treated equally. If it has been otherwise, I would have been the first one to shout at the government. because I'm from the private sector. So no, same treatment to everybody. And then once they move from SME to emerging exporters, we also train them to the international market, rules of origin, bringing your quality of your product to the international standards, open up, we bring them to international markets, fairs, so that we give them the international exposure. Thereafter, once they have been matured up as emerging exporters, then they can fly on their own. But that's entirely, the government is putting a budget for the SME development. We don't have any problems, or we don't have any complaint at the level of the government of Mauritius in terms of they are not assisting women at that level. I must say that this is not the case. Then the question arises is where the problem lies. Why can't women matured up as entrepreneurs? I think it's, first of all, exposure, but more so, I think the confidence to move, to take risk. Women entrepreneur is about leading a company is risk. You have to look at all the aspects, whether I'm going to get the order. If I get the order, how I'm going to manufacture that. How I can be on time. How do I manage the finance? It's a whole lot of issues that you need to deal with. Now, does the Mauritian woman lack confidence? That's what we are looking at. So, but hopefully, in terms of our society, I was talking to Adrienne yesterday night, and we had a lovely conversation whether what type of society, because your society contributes to build up the confidence of women. And I think that there is an equal, we treat our men and women equally. The boys and girls are given the same treatment at school. And I think that our society is evolving in terms of our parents. The new generation parents is giving the opportunity to their girls and daughters to take risk, be independent, and do their careers. So I think that it will take some time, at least one more decade, for the ladies and women and girls and daughters of my society to take more risk and become more entrepreneur. I will end on one point.
Okay.
On one point. And what we as MEXA, we have been doing as we have taken the issue on the other way around, how we built up the confidence. Yesterday you talked about the industrial training, how we can have industrial training which provide the right skills to our manufacturing company. At MEXA we have developed an industrial training based on the required needs of the sector. And we are managing that program, the training program. I'm ensuring that in all my programs, I've got at least girls in those programs. We've just launched the industrial engineering program, and I've got 3 ladies, young ladies in this program, and I can tell you, they are working at the same time studying. There are 3 days at school and 3 days at work. And I can tell you that they are the best, actually, out of the entire lot. It's just that I need to boost their confidence, because by exposing them to the workplace, they built up their confidence, and hopefully 20 years down the road, they may take up the challenge of becoming a woman entrepreneur. Thank you, Clara.
Thanks, Liloti. Well, it does sound like there are a mix of sort of, I guess, hard and soft barriers, skills, but also cultural and confidence building measures that need to be taken. And to your point about it being a global problem, about women not finding themselves in the top echelons in businesses, I can 100% attest to that. The number of boardrooms I've been in London where it's me and 15 men around a table is countless. So this is a problem pretty much everywhere. I now want to turn to Sona, though, and to talk a bit about the experience in the Gambia, which is currently undergoing, or in the process of undergoing a pretty rapid democratic transformation. The president, who had been in power for a long time, was ousted last year, followed by a successful democratic election. So I guess what I want to ask you is, do you feel that this political transition is offering a further opening to women entrepreneurs?
Thank you, and thank you to the ICT, and in particular Arantxa Gonzalez as well, for bringing me here to this opportunity to share with you, which I'm very excited about, since my position on the stage is usually behind my instrument and with my voice. So I would like to just give you a small snapshot of the Gambia, the situation we have there. As you mentioned, yes, we are undergoing political change, and of course, that always will open up new opportunities for things to grow, although the situations that we face and have faced are still the same going on into the future. So we still have to continue with the work that we're doing on the ground. I would say that I'm talking obviously for the Gambia. I would still say some of the issues that we face in the Gambia we can also apply to other areas of Africa as well, since we have somewhat of common culture in Africa. I would say the situation in Gambia is one that we face where we have a rural society, a society that is not fully exposed to the tools of literacy and education across the country. Our literacy rates are quite low. Graduates are even lower because we have one university in the country. So we have a particular situation that we have a backdrop to development and entrepreneurship amongst females. I noticed, one thing that always frustrated me in the culture in the country was, why is support always wasted? I see money coming in, I see initiatives come in, I see volunteers, I see donations, I see so much coming into the country, and why do I not seeing the benefits of it? Why am I not seeing companies taking off? Why are they going down as fast as they come up? So that's an issue there. Once I started to work in the country myself, I very quickly came across two really big problems. And I would be bold enough to say they are the crucial problems, which is firstly mentality, and secondly is management structures. We have a big problem on both of those counts in the country, and that's something that I'm actively working against on a daily basis in the country. Those problems, of course, are unisex problems. They're countrywide problems. So it's for both men and women. On the front of mentality, one of the things that is crucial in changing mentality is education. School provisions that schools can give across the country. The government, of course, yes, achieved the goal of providing free education, giving statistics of having schools in villages and so on, but what's happening inside those schools? My family is from a village, where we, not had so long access to running water and electricity. If you go to those schools, it's a mess, if I'm really honest with you, and I have to be honest in a platform like this. It's a mess. I'm disappointed, I'm frustrated, I'm angry. Why is this happening to our people? We have a situation where young children are going to school, there's no teacher there, if they turn up. I said, what did you do today? The teacher didn't show. Or the teacher was there sitting there doing his own thing. So that's an honest issue, snapshot. It's not saying that it's happening in all schools, but that is happening in the villages. And we have a situation where the schools themselves are not built well. They're in a mess, they're not sustained, we don't have facilities. We have 10 children on one table. If you're lucky, we have a blackboard. These kind of issues can't happen in the country. There needs to change, because that is where children will learn. And it's where children are supposed to learn things like consistency, determination, dedication, competitiveness, all the hallmarks of what it takes to become an entrepreneur. You should start to have the seeds built at school. So if children are in schools in an environment where they have none of those things, it's no surprise that we have the outcome that we have in the country, where the mentality reflects what they have been through at school. Secondly, there's the female problem. And females in society always have an extra layer. It's like we've got the society problems, and on top of it, you're also a female. And females also have a huge problem with the culture in the country. We have a culture of subordination of women still, in the cultural context that is still taking place. In schools, and obviously from a very young age, we have big issues in the culture, which I'm fighting against. FGM still takes place in the country, widely across the country. And that has to be recognized as a huge impact on the mentality of a woman from a very young age. And the second point as well, we have the issue of females entering into marriage at a far too young age. That is also a big major problem. And even if they're not entering into marriage at a young age, there's the pressure from the family that their ambition in life needs to be to get married, and women believe that. My main ambition is to be married, and marry a man who can support me. That's a mentality we have to change. So, I'm going for it because I have the opportunity. So this is some of what I realize really is we have to look at cultural reform before we can look at trade and development, particularly for women in the country. So that is what I address. And also a critical point is that entrepreneurship and business success should not be at the opposite ends of being an African woman. There's a lot of the time, you know, people look at the female figure in African society as being a symbol of what it means to be African. You know, they do carry the culture. There's no denying that they carry the culture. My grandmother was a matriarch of African society. But why is it that we see that women going into business, women being progressive in society, is going away from African culture? So this is why some of the families stop that, because they don't want the women to go away from their culture. We want to change that. Being an African woman and being successful in business should not be at opposite ends of the poles. It's at the same place. So we need to again look at the way that culture can change to adapt for women to be African and be successful in business and be educated as well. So that's another point. I didn't want to talk much about myself. I just want to introduce a little bit because it's relevant in this situation. You know, myself as an instrumentalist, as a musician, I belong to a particular group of people called griots in West African society. These are hereditary musicians. We have passed down this tradition. It's been going for over 7 centuries, this tradition of playing particular instruments. And you have to be born in one of those families to be able to play this instrument that I play. It's a male tradition and has been for 700 years. So it's very significant that I'm the first female in one of these griot families to be taking this instrument professionally. So I have broken tradition. I'm changing tradition. And this is what is really important. We have to change tradition to adapt to the modern world. Tradition isn't a stagnant thing. It isn't a thing of the past. It isn't some museum piece that we have to go to Africa to see the past. We're going to look at the future in Africa now. And we have to use traditions to support the future of Africa. And that's why I do what I'm doing, because I'm an artist and a musician representing old culture in a modern way. So that's something that I think is very important. This is the reason I set up the school. I'm sorry. This is the reason I set up my school, which was to bring culture into the modern age. So it's the first school in the country which teaches culture and traditions alongside academic studies. So we've been running for 2 years now, particularly teaching girls as well and boys in outreach projects and all kinds, engaging in the society, realizing they have power in society, which is very important for children, but teaching them alongside their culture so they can be African and progressive at the same time. And now we're looking at expanding to becoming an academy, working in the rural areas, engaging young people, especially between 18 and 25, to be engaged in the development of society along with this academy. So I guess I have to stop, although I have so much more to say, but thank you so much for the opportunity.
Hopefully we'll come back to you, and
you.
There is much more to say, and we'll also get some questions from the audience for you, I'm sure. But I want to turn to Ahu now, because so we've talked about the issue of culture, we've talked about the idea of, I suppose, breaking molds without breaking traditions necessarily. I want to ask you about one of the hard aspects of why it's so difficult for women to become entrepreneurs worldwide, specifically access to capital. So you have an entrepreneurship platform. You connect women to financing and capital. You come from a business backdrop. Why is this continually such an issue?
Well, I'm a Turkish woman, born and raised in Turkey. We have the same problems, same cultural problems. By the way, thank you for the conference team making these videos available. It's going to help me explain you what we are doing at ARIA investment platform. I'm the president of an automotive company. We do parts for the automotive sector, not the most optimal sector for a woman. That's what they told me, at least at the beginning. It is a global problem. I worked in New York in investment banking. I was always the only woman. I came back to the automotive sector. The Germans I worked with, I was always the only woman. I recently went to invest in a French company, global company. There were 19 guys on the board. 19 of them were French. There was one Chinese guy though, and they were always, about the age of 60. Like you said, Arantxa, when I go and value a company now, without asking how much turnover they do or how global they are, you first look at the picture, who is ruling this company. It says a lot about that company. So for me, that company is not a global company. So coming back home, in 2002, I came back home and took over the family business. What I was very lucky about is that I had a great father who left me his business. It was about 8 million euro at that time, and then we grew the company now over 250 million euro. And I was very fortunate enough to do my own ventures. So around 40, I started asking myself, for every entrepreneur, there's always this dream, having a social enterprise. I said, I haven't done my social enterprise yet. What is it going to be? So, and we always tell the entrepreneurs, first identify a big problem, and then solve it, find the customers, then you will succeed. For me, one of the biggest problems I found, and it's a global problem, so there's a lot of opportunity for scaling. It was the issue of women. And then I said, how can I help them? I said, okay, I can teach them how to make money. That was the product. And who's going to be my first customers? Rather than going to the governments or asking for charity, I said, who would invest in a women-owned business? And for me, there were 2 points. First of all, it should be other women who have been fortunate enough, like myself, who are holding a power of position in society and access to finance. And second, fathers. Every father of a daughter wants his girl to be successful and to have a good place in life. So they were our core people to pitch. So what we're doing here, we have 4 pillars. The main goal is, of course, taking investment for female-owned businesses. In 2 years, we have invested more than $500,000 into women-owned enterprises. So we have an accelerator program where we invite women to have this 2-month program where we educate them. They should be in a revenue target between $250K to $2.5 million so that they have already passed the dead zone, and then we can take them further so they can get to power quite easily, and they can make power for themselves and around. And we have the educating component. All our training is for free, so they get all kinds of training and mentorship. So and why it's called ARIA, like I said, when I was going to my 40th, said, okay, I have 3 daughters. What is it that I want to leave to my daughters? How should they remember me by? And my young daughter's name is Arya. That's why the platform is called Arya Investment Platform. I think this is the best thing a woman can leave to their children, to daughters, and now we are open to also sons. We are growing. Every year in Bodrum we have, last year we were 150 people coming from 10 countries. We even had a person from Nigeria. Arancha was with us, so it's growing. And my aim is to take this platform, making it a platform for female entrepreneurs in challenging regions. So whoever want to use it to help women, to, how should a women behave in order to get confidence, to be more brave. So, and now we have offers to go to Azerbaijan and Georgia. And we're very open. We would love to be in Africa because I think it's a great opportunity. So as an investor, I see women as a great opportunity because this is an opportunity that nobody is looking at. And whoever first finds this opportunity is going to make a lot of money, of course, but also it's going to be the biggest social enterprise in the world.
As a slight follow-up to that, though, you talked about sort of working in finance in New York. You talked about confidence, you talked about sort of training and different things. In terms of hooking up the women that you work with to funders and to investors, do you think that there are additional challenges that female founders face as opposed to their male counterparts?
Yes, prejudice is one of them. I'm also the only women member of a big technology angel investor group. So I see the difference my male colleagues are treating. Sometimes we have female entrepreneurs pitching. So there is a big difference in terms of valuation. And it's not something, and all these men are wonderful men, don't get me wrong. They're educated and they like women. It's just that it's something built in. And that's like a discounting factor. So that is why it's very important for women to be very result-oriented. That is why I always speak with my numbers. Some people were taking me for a snob because I say I'm the president of a 2,000 people company, because otherwise they would just say, oh, this is just a woman who speaks well. But then you have to put the numbers behind, and also in developing something, you have to start with your own turf. So in an automotive supplier company with 2,000 people, we have 43% of the employees are women, both on the shop floor and above, and on the management level it's 52%. This is unseen in an automotive company, so that means it can be done. So I'm not just talking, okay, employ more women in your, companies, but I'm doing it to show people that it can be done. For us, the women, we have to show that it can be done, and I'm here to help them to show what they can do.
Thank you very much. That actually segues very well into the work that Osegun is doing in Nigeria. You guys at the NAPC have made some very ambitious commitments through SheTrades. I think it was to bring 100,000 women into the market, I assume with sort of SMEs and MSMEs by 2020. Can you talk to us a bit about how you intend on doing that and what you see as the role of your organization in sort of fostering women-led organizations and bringing them into the marketplace?
Thank you. First, let me say I'm an only child, but I grew up in a house full of about 9 sisters, so I'm very much at home here. Let me also just quickly thank Dr. Penna and the Hungarian government and everything for this wonderful conference that you've organized, and to thank, of course, my dear sister and friend Arantxa and the whole ITC team for constantly raising the bar at every conference we go. Thank you very much. Let me start by your question, Adrian. First, it was to Arantxa, and you made a question of why, with all this going on, why are women not connecting? What is happening? And Dr. Penna also made allusions to that. But it's a simple answer. There was no SheTrades. That's why. That's why. Now there's SheTrades. Let me tell you why. For us in Nigeria, we signed on quickly because my team went to the Trailblazer Summit in Sao Paulo and came back with a report that ITC was championing this, and this is what the future is like. They made a very strong pitch to me. About 6 of them came into my office. ED, you have to sit down and listen to this. And they make the pitch of SheTrades. And for me, it was a no-brainer. We had to. Let me tell you the context in which we signed into it. Nigeria is an oil economy. Oil prices had crashed, and to date, in 2 years, the country has lost $100 billion. In 2 years, we lost revenue of $100 billion. But the country is still standing. And you wonder why. It's not an act of God or a magic wand that is holding the country, but it's informal trade. And when you look at the dynamics of informal trade, it's mostly SMEs, as you know, SMEs, MSMEs, and it's mostly women-owned businesses that are doing this. So it was a no-brainer for us. For us to survive, we knew, this is the program we had to sign into, the SheTrades program, and which is what we did. We had a very high-profile launch of the SheTrades. We had ITC in partnership with us. We're so glad Arantxa made that visit to Nigeria. But I tell you, Arantxa, it was no problem at all convincing the wife of the president, convincing the wife of the vice president, the wife of the speaker, ministers, to be part of that program. They all signed into it immediately because they understood what this meant. And the simple reason is that for women to thrive in this, they have to latch on to global value chains. And that's what the SheTrades platform brings to the women. So that's really the main reason why we keyed onto it as quickly as possible. We set a figure of 100,000, but at the launch, we got commitments with partners and everybody to almost 480,000 women that will sign on to the SheTrades. By the time we get it working, because of our population in Nigeria, 180 million people, 55% women, we know we can surpass that target that ITC has in fact set. So that is the main reason why we believe in the SheTrades platform. But before we commenced it, we really wanted to know what was the problem, and that long life fundamental question that has eluded the best of philosophers all over the world. What do women want? Yes, we know. In Nigeria, in any PC, we know. We had a questionnaire that went around to ask them, the women businesses, what is your problem? Why are you not thriving like men? And particularly for the export business, because to go into global value chains means export, and particularly in Nigeria, we had lost our main source of foreign exchange, which was the oil revenue. 90% of our revenue is from oil.
And what were the key takeaways from the questionnaire?
The key takeaways were they found it really ambiguous, exporting ambiguous. They had difficulty in accessing buyers. They complained about access to information. They didn't have enough common facility centers. And when you look at the SheTrades program, it answers all that. That's what it does. So it was easy for us just to key into that. And we know we will encourage more of our women to sign on. We'll make that target and to connect into global value chains. I'll stop there.
Great. Well, it's good to hear that SheTrades is sort of fitting exactly into that need so well. I'm going to ask one more question to the panel, and then I'm going to open it to the floor. But I want to sort of take a step even higher up from where we've been speaking about before and talk on the level of trade policy. Traditionally, trade policy, like most international agreements, at least in the private sector, has been gender neutral. Part of what SheTrades and what some countries are talking about now is actually including specific provisions to promote women-led enterprises on international trading platforms. So my question is, first of all, what does this look like? Can it be effective? And I guess the third part of that is, doesn't it set women as looking like we're permanently disadvantaged within the covenants of international agreements? I'm just being provocative here. Arantxa, I'm going to pick on you first, but then if other people want to jump in, please do.
I was laughing because it's like, where have I heard this before? I mean, is this the discussion we've been having? I mean, I've been working in trade policy for over 25 years, and I've always heard that trade policies are neutral. They are made for everybody, and it is true. They are made for everybody, but the problem is that the starting point is not the same for everybody. So what I want is trade policies. I don't want trade policies that segregate women into some sort of protective space. I want trade policies that are sensitive to the differences that women have compared to men in business. And what is the biggest difference? The biggest difference is size. The vast majority of companies that are women-owned are smaller in size, and they are smaller in size for all the reasons that I've cited in my first intervention. So if they are smaller in size, it means they are much more sensitive to fixed trade costs. So what I am advocating is for trade policy makers to look and understand with gender disaggregated data what's the structure of the women in business as a means to craft trade policies that will address their specific concerns. I am not advocating that governments have separate trade policies for women. I'm not interested in that. I am not interested in segregation of women. I'm interested in policies that take into account the specificities of women in business. And this is why, together with other friends, including the ambassador of Sierra Leone that is quietly sitting in the audience, the ambassador of Iceland to the WTO in Geneva, we have put together a declaration on gender and trade. Very simple, non-controversial, that we hope all ministers of trade will sign on to in the Buenos Aires Ministerial Conference as an engagement to look at how they can make their trade policies more gender sensitive.
Thank you very much. Lilauti, I see you nodding and shaking your head along. Do you have something you'd like to add or a perspective you'd like to share on?
Having been in the trade policy part as well for so many years, I don't think that we can have a trade policy different for men and women. It will not be able to do that. And that instead of really leveling up women, it will create the disparity more. So we should not go for that, and I would not advocate for having that at the level of government. But there is a big work, a huge work that we can do together to level up the woman to where we want them to be, and that's what we have to put our heads together and work on it, and I think there's an urgent need to do that. Like we are having here, sharing of experience, we can take commonalities together, because as I mentioned, the problem is global. It's global, so we have to work on the problem itself rather than the contours of it. I like what Sona was saying, how she built. She's working to really work against that culture way of thinking, you know. So I'm more in terms, rather than trade policy, I'm more on the operational way of doing things, strategic and operational. Let's work together and find the way that how we can make the woman entrepreneur come up at par with the rest of the world. And that's my message. That's my message to ITC. And I think that you have to do it, because we need a corporation, an organization like you to do it. And that's what we need to sit together and work for it. And I'm sure at your ministerial meeting, if you put a paper on that, you will gather a momentum very quickly. And that's my message to you.
Sounds promising. On that promising note, I'm going to open the floor to questions, actually, and then we can hopefully maybe do some more questions after. But if there are questions from the floor, in the front row over here first, if we could get some microphones. Please say who you are, where you're coming from, and keep your question very concise and direct it to the panelists if that's relevant.
Awesome. My name is Anna, and I'm from New Zealand. And I'm finding this conversation a little bit difficult, because what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that women are the problem. You're saying that they need to be more confident, they need to be more skilled. And I think that doesn't actually acknowledge the structural sexism in place. So my question to the panel is, how are we actually going to confront structural sexism?
Thank you very much. Who wants to take that one? Ahu.
Actually, I don't think, I'm sorry if I came out wrong. I identified that women had a problem. I'm not seeing women as a problem, but we have a problem of the structural sexism and the opportunities. So when they were talking about SheTrades, for example, how, if this was a venture, how would I run it? What are the success criteria? I think there are two folds in order to overcome the structural sexism. One is to create role models for other women and also for men to see, and the other one to create results. So, for example, for SheTrades, I would go and I watch you in the panel. So, for example, crowdfunding is an excellent source for getting together the small sizes in order to make a bigger size. I would use crowdfunding, and then I would do an accelerator program. I wouldn't grant everybody to be in it. Like you said, the policy is for everybody. So you cannot be unequal in that. But then you have to choose the ones that have been using these policies to make a difference, and then to come to a point. I would choose these people, put them in an accelerator program, and all together to create success stories. And then showing them to the world that it can be done. This would be my way. This is maybe there are other ways, but it would be a way for me to make a difference in terms of the sexism.
Anybody else have a thought? Olusegun.
Yes, just to take you on that, I don't think it's, if you got the kind of idea that we were saying women are the problem, and then no, there is a problem, and we have to face it. And when you look at, that's why I always say this SheTrades initiative is a very important one, because the 7 global actions on the SheTrades platform, you need to read through it and then see how impactful they are going to be when we tackle them. Access to finance is very difficult. You have women-owned businesses, they can't get access to finance. You have to unlock that. You have to make it accessible for women to get that kind of finance. Women are rising in banks. For instance, in Nigeria now, we have many bank MDs, managing directors, that are women. But still, when you look at the statistics, women-owned businesses are not, getting out there to be able to do things. I'm glad Arantxa is taking up another initiative of one of the 7 global actions, that is to create trade policies and agreements that will enhance women's participation in trade, which is also very important. We're not calling for separate agreements because women have a problem or women are the problem. No, we're saying your trade policies must be such that can allow women as well to participate. We are looking at public procurement in Nigeria. We're still gathering the data, and very soon we're going to take it to our Federal Executive Council, that look, we demand, because we made a commitment that 20% of public procurement for women-owned businesses. We're having a challenge now on getting it, because some people that have come to us, and we have to send them back, no, you're just the managing director. The business is not owned by you. We're also, in Nigeria, we're looking at our corporate commission that registers businesses, and we're saying you must do this for us. Let's know the women-owned businesses, and let's even offer them free registration, because in our own case we're trying to draw them into the formal market, in the formal economy, because many of them are informal. So those are some of the things that are doing. So it's not that we think women are the problem.
Thank you very much. Let's get another question. I think we only have time for 1 or 2, maybe more. Let's get the lady in the red dress right in front here.
So I'm Indira from Sri Lanka, and it's with the last WEDF that we launched SheTrade in Sri Lanka. And I must say, with that we also launched a women's cell at the Export Development Board. And if you look at the Export Development Board, the majority of the directors are women. And I'm also happy to say after 40 years they appointed the first chairperson also being a woman. And with this, a little caution. Now, when we introduce people to SheTrade, we don't just allow anybody to go online and register themselves. I think as TPOs, we must be very responsible that the women who register online are those with certain quality. If they don't have the quality, help them with the quality, help them with the packaging and marketing. Because, once you register, and you can have not too successful stories. So as TPOs, I think we must be very responsible, and it is our responsibility that all the women who register on the SheTrade line is those who have been assisted and who would meet with success. And I have a few officers who follow through it with them. So I think this is just a message to all the TPOs. Then SheTrade becomes successful and people have confidence in the SheTrade online.
Okay. Can we get another question? Can we keep it mostly to questions? Yes, in the yellow jacket right here.
Ying McGuire, Chinese American with Irish name, living Austin, Texas. I actually have a quick comment and a suggestion. When Dell launched a $100 million debt fund for women entrepreneurs, no woman applied. Men applied for the women fund. So it's not sexism. There's a real problem we need to talk about and address it. That experience triggered the launch of Empower Billion Women by 2020 initiative, which is a technology platform providing financing to women entrepreneurs. And there are Women Retreat Initiative from Turkey. There's Empower Billion Women 2020 global initiative. There's women initiative everywhere. The question is, how can SheTrades research and collect and aggregate all these resources into a central platform, make it accessible to all women business around the world so they have options to use these resources and to make them successful? So that's my suggestion. Thank you.
Any comment as to whether that's a feasible suggestion?
So my answer to you would be SheTrades.com. Please get to your phones. It works on iPhone, it works on BlackBerry, it works on iPad, it works on every technology, SheTrades.com. Do it yourself. Download the app. Register as a woman in business. Send it to every woman in business that you know. We want to create a place, Facebook, I hesitate to call it Facebook, or LinkedIn for women in business, where they would have the ability to be visible to markets. Look, the question here, if we want to change, to go back to Anna's question, if we want to change the dynamic, there has to be a business proposition in this. This is something that everybody understands. When I go to a country, I never say, this is great, you're going to do great on your human rights record. I do believe that they will do great on the human rights record, but they are not moved by this. They are moved when I say it's 2 percentage points of your GDP that you are missing. So let me tell you a story in that regard. 1 year ago, we were approached by Barclays Bank, Kenya. In Kenya, there is an amazing amount of women entrepreneurs, and they are a huge source of potential business if you tap into them. So Barclays Bank Kenya opened a $50 million US credit line for women in business. They did this 5 years ago. 5 years later, they hadn't basically disbursed a single penny. Why? Because the women that knock at the bank's door did not have a bankable project. And because the risk assessment methods of Barclays Bank Kenya basically rejected and refused every woman that would knock at their door. So they called us, and at SheTrades, we've been working with them. 1 year later, what has happened? $3 million US in loans have been disbursed. 170 companies, women-owned businesses, have gotten a credit line. It's an average of $15,000, which is in an amount that is this missing middle that companies can get. And 300 additional women are waiting in the queue. When I go with this, I am much more convincing because it's a business proposition. So business proposition, SheTrades.com, please register.
Thank you. We have time for one last question. I see, okay, a hand in the middle there. And can we please keep it quite concise? Thank you.
My name is Yamna El-Shiridi. I'm president of Businesswomen of Egypt. And when we talk about women issues, usually there are two mistakes we tend to fall. We have really to differentiate between the challenges in urban and rural, because as I saw through across the speakers, there were a big difference. And the big challenge worldwide is the childbearing age. It's the classic conflict between being a mother and a householder and being in business and achieve your ambition. I always believe the man has an ambition and a woman has an ambition. She could be very happy to achieve her ambition somehow. So when we talk about women in business or empowering women, we have to secure, like for example, the stage of childbearing age. I would suggest that we start a data bank for home-based projects. Home-based projects will enable her to continue to be related to the business world and not be unpolished by the time she grows her children and she comes back to workforce and she lost a lot of skills. So a home-based project is a key to empowering many women across the board from many countries. And I would suggest this to be included in the program of SheTrades as an essential tool for women to be empowered through her childbearing age and through the
Great, thank you very much. Actually, Sona, I mean, you did touch on this a little bit in your remarks, but in terms of sort of the challenges facing women in urban versus rural context, Is that acknowledged enough, and could you outline, at least from your experience, how those differ?
In the rural communities, yeah. I mean, I think you touch a really important point, which is about balancing this role of the woman in society, which is something that I'm directly targeting now with the project that we're doing on the ground, with engaging with culture and making change through culture, getting women into business. A good example is in the Gambia, for example, we have the symbol of cooking is held with a woman. The woman is the one who cooks at home in every traditional society. So why in the businesses, when you go to the hotels and the restaurants, there's no women in the kitchen? It doesn't make any sense to me. So there we have a perfect example of there's no continuity between our tradition and our business in society. So we need to find this connection. So for this reason, I've implemented a program for teaching women how to cook in the professional context, bringing nutrition into the country, because we have so much problems with mortality, with high oil, salt, and all these kind of contents, just because of lack of education in that area. Currently have some employees on the ground who are dealing with that from abroad, teaching local women to actually be able to cook and cater professionally, and also go home in outreach projects and actually spread this knowledge to their community in their villages. So we have outreach projects, which it also involves the children as well, and the boy children as well as the girl children. And that again is hugely empowering, because it makes women realize that their traditional roles in society also have a place in the business context, which is hugely important. And also another example is or more of a particular cultural aspect is dance. Women dance in our culture, and it's a huge industry even in around the world. But why is the Gambia have no dance troupes, no representation for this art form? So that's again another area of setting up the country's first dance studio, professional dance place, where we are taking women in to actually lead this role. They have absolutely no literacy, don't speak any English, and yet this archetypal person, stands for a lot of percentage of people in the rural areas in the Gambia, bringing them into the context when they can actually learn and be trained how to teach effectively. And now I have a number of these women who are in charge of international people coming to study dance professionally in the country, and they are leading these people without still not speaking much English, but in return we are teaching them literacy. So whilst they're engaging in trade, earning money, earning a salary, teaching people from around the world what they're good at traditionally, they're also getting an education, which I'm sure they will start to use in the future to actually build on their expertise. So this connection between what is at home and in the business place is very, very, very essential. And projects like this in the rural areas are essential to make that happen.
Thank you, Sona. Actually, Petra, I wanted to bring you in on this question as well, because you did talk about some of the initiatives that Hungary is undertaking to sort of, I guess, level the playing field to a certain extent.
Between these two.
In the family context, but what about sort of in in Hungary, sort of the different challenges that are faced by women sort of who live in sort of big cities like Budapest, and those who might be in more rural areas? Do you think that there are different challenges that they face?
I guess that for Hungary is the same like in some other countries, Once the capital, actually Hungary is very centralized country, let's say it so. Everything, takes place here in Budapest. All the, best universities are here. You get here, education, culture, etc. It's more difficult to live on the countryside. I myself am from the countryside, from a town which was usually second largest, now the third largest in the country. And what I see if I travel back home is that the city is quite empty and it's old. I have all my friends here at Budapest. When I finished the university, I came here to work for the ministry, and I have no idea, thoughts about, going back to Miskolc. So I guess that this is the same problem for every country. And what was the other part of your question?
Well, you kind of answered it in that, I mean, how women cope with difficulties of sort of accessing opportunity in rural areas
on everything,
migrate,
as I mentioned. Yeah. Even if we are, now it's a hot cake to talk about digitalization or all those skills, using those tools. It leads back to education once again. And once you don't have access, for example, to high-speed internet, I mean, in the countryside, it's difficult to get involved, you know, in this digital world of ours.
Great. I think we're almost coming to the end of our time, so I'm going to ask one final thing of all our panelists. Just to sort of, I guess, sum up, we've touched on a lot of issues. There are a lot of other things, obviously, we could talk about. But I guess I'm going to give you each about, let's say, 30 seconds to say if you had one wish or one recommendation that you could make to global policymakers in terms of the thing that would make the biggest difference in bringing women into global trade, what would it be? And I'm going to start at the other end. I'm going to start with Ahu. Sorry.
You caught me off guard. I guess when you made me all think how we can create a bigger difference, I think just all coming together and putting our powers together and create these stories that people need to hear. I think that it's the best thing we could do. Women are most underutilized resource in the world. I mean, and the world needs a lot of resources. And while we find this resource, I would say, let's work on it, you know, to make a greater impact on our world.
So promoting those narratives. Petra.
Once again, you know, I'm working for the government or for the ministry 12 years. You know, I don't have any experiences in the private sector. And now we are talking about SheTrades and entrepreneurs, and we are the ones, you know, the policymakers that you know, are helping them for accessing these markets. But what I wanted to wear attention that maybe, you know, it's the same for the public sector as well. What I see that in my team there are both males and females, mostly females, but what I see at the top of the ministry, for example, I see all males, you know. So I guess it's not only for the private sector, but it is true for the public sector as well, that gender equality is a thing that we have to work on it. And from my side, if I have to take it globally, well, we are now candidating Hungary to be a member in the UN Women Executive Council. So I wish this membership for us, for Hungary, and hopefully it will, you know, open the eyes of some other policymakers and leaders of ours for these issues. So thank you.
I wish you success in that. Lilauti.
Thank you. On my side, I have only one message. I hate listening to women being the weak part of things, weak link. We are not. We are an opportunity. We are equal to men. It's gender equality, it's gender power. I'm more into working in leveling up the ladies and daughters of our society to the same level as men. It's just that the men has been taking ahead of us. They have been here. If you look back to history, they have been working and earning the living of a family. It's just that ladies were meant to be at work. Society has changed. We just need to bring up our young daughters and girls up to the same level as men, and that's where we need to work on. That's my message to everybody.
Starts at home, I guess. Olusegun.
Thank you very much. I have two daughters. One is 25, the other is 23. And sitting with these powerful women on this panel, I've never been more assured of their future as I am today. So thank you, all of you strong women, for making me feel that way. I say, look, let's take the 7 global actions of the SheTrades initiatives and drive it. Because for me, undoubtedly, SheTrades is a game changer for women empowerment and global social economic advancement. And I strongly encourage all countries who are yet to sign on as quickly as possible, so my daughters can enjoy the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Sona.
I think for me, I would have to talk about the policymakers that can make a change to the country that I'm working in specifically, and I would really call for more of an open drive to bring out some of the challenges that women face culturally in our country. I think there's too much taboo around these topics, and I think that oversensitivity to those topics is what's continuing to hold women back. Once people can talk openly about these things and talk about us progressing culturally in those areas for women, I believe that women will have much more space to grow, since they will know that society is protecting them rather than them suppressing them. So I believe that is something that is I would really like to see happen.
Thank you, Sona. Finally, Arantxa.
So the toughest to change is mentality, is culture, is tradition, is norms. But the good news is that it can be changed only if each and every one of us engages. So my wish is that leaving this room, we all take a commitment to challenge one norm, one stereotype, one culture, one received wisdom, and go out there and work to change it.
Thank you very much, and I would definitely second everything that's been said here, but especially Arantxa's call for everybody to go out and confront stereotype and to confront entrenched sexism, and that it's not only the role of women to do so. Men are our partners and our equals in doing so. So I would challenge all of you here to engage in this process equally. And on that note, thank you to my panelists. Thank you to all of you for listening. And thank you to the International Trade Center and to Hungary for hosting us here. Bye.